But you'll also need, of course, some all-purpose flour. And then I won't be addressing each of the exact amounts as I go through them. Again, it will be in the description. But I wanted to say thank you to all of you for 5,000 subscribers. And honestly, it's 5,000 plus now, which has been, it's so fast. But I genuinely appreciate and love all of you very, very much. And so I'm really excited to keep creating more and seeing you guys comment and interact. I really appreciate it. So for the first step, you're going to add melted butter. It's 1 stick of melted butter. And then normally I would recommend that you brown the butter first. This adds a little bit more of a rich sort of toffee flavor to the cookie, but I didn't do that today, just for the sake of time, but I do recommend it. And then melting the butter, as opposed to using room temp, is going to give you a little bit more of that crisp outside and chewy inside, as opposed to entirely chewy and sort of airy on the inside, which is what room temp would give you. And then I am just packing in the brown sugar here, and when I pour it out, I notice that there's like a little bit that wasn't packed in. So I tend to be like a bit of a perfectionist with it, and I wanted to make sure I got that extra little bit of sugar. I feel like I'm running out of breath while I do close whispers. I know that's like a shared experience, so I don't feel too bad, but it's still a little alarming. And then I am going to add in, I believe, honestly, I remember it was 3/4 cup of brown sugar, and then 1/2 cup of regular granulated sugar. So then I add that in there, and then all of this will end up being combined into essentially a paste. I do believe that I put the salt in at this time as well, though. I don't, yep, yes I do. I believe it calls for like 1/2 teaspoon of salt, but since my butter was already salted, I figured I would just sort of dash it in instead of measuring it exactly. And it generally always works out in the end if you don't do something exact, and if it really doesn't work out, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Life goes on, and you can keep making as many batches as you'd like, as long as you aren't too discouraged to try again. And then I just start whisking everything together to sort of put it into, like I said, a paste. And this is essentially aerating the butter and the sugar all together, and it's important that you do this step and whisk it all together properly so that everything spreads correctly, basically, in the oven. A huge part of making a good chocolate chip cookie, for me, is having it sort of as the in-between, where it's not like a literal flat crisp, but it's not a super thick cakey cookie either. I just absolutely prefer the almost like the Nestle Toll House cookie texture, where it's just crispy on the outside, but you've got a couple little pockets of like fresh dough on the inside. That's awesome. At least foundation essentially, because I realized I didn't need it. And then this right here. No, there isn't an eggshell in the bowl. I don't know what you're talking about. Leave it alone. So I add in 1 whole egg, and I almost mess up here. I almost put the egg whites in there. You're gonna add 1 whole egg, as well as 1, oh my gosh, I'm talking on the wrong side of the mic. 1 egg yolk. This is going to make it more rich, and it's just better. The texture is better. It just, trust me, add in an extra egg yolk, and it'll taste awesome. They'll turn out awesome. I could have cut out me breaking off the eggshell in there, but let me be real with you guys, okay? Clearly, I have not perfected cracking an egg with one hand after all this time. And then I'm adding in, I believe that's 1 teaspoon of vanilla, but you always add in extra. That is non-negotiable. So just measure the vanilla with your heart after the teaspoon. That's necessary. And then I go back in to cream all of that together again. And as you're mixing this mixture, what is important to look out for is just sort of mixing it until you have ribbons that will fall onto top of the batter and sort of stay there until they slowly sink back in. That is generally the texture you'd like to go for, and as you can see, it starts to lighten up which to me, I do not like that. I do not like a cakey cookie. I don't want it to be like 2 inches tall. That's not my thing. And then I'm just getting that final 4th cup in there. And then I add in the baking soda. There are a few recipes out there where you incorporate both baking soda and baking powder, but this one only calls for baking soda. And generally you'll want to whisk all of the dry ingredients together before you put them into the wet mixture, but it's literally just baking soda as the additional ingredient to the flour, so I think we'll be okay. We will survive. And this is the step in which you'd like to be. Oh, hold on. I don't know why I just put that in the camera like that. I just go to shake the bag off with the excess flour. But this is the step in which you'll want to be mindful of how you are mixing the dough at this point. If you do end up over mixing your batter or your dough, you will end up sort of, I don't know the word, overdeveloping, something like that, overdeveloping the gluten in the flour, and then that is going to result in a much cakier cookie. It's going to be a lot more dense, and I'm sure some people enjoy that, but it's kind of like in a bad way, like where it's not intentionally dense. Likewise, like I had in my previous video with the cake, if you overmix cake batter, it's going to result in a lot more of a dense, gummy sort of cake. And so it's not really like a pound cake, it's just kind of gross. And then in order to scrape down the sides of the bowl, I couldn't just scrape it with the spatula, so I spread the dough onto the sides where the flour was. That way the flour would stick to the dough, because it wasn't really possible to scrape with the rubber spatula while the flour was just dry. And this is the best part. You do not measure your chocolate chips, you just put them in. You use your heart, you use your stomach. The dark chocolate chips cut the sweetness, but are still sweet. They're delicious, so I absolutely recommend you don't skip them. As well as the chocolate chunks. Semi-sweet, they give you really good pockets of chocolate instead of, little chocolate chips. And if you say that that's too many chocolate chips, I will get your comment and show it to authorities for cyber terrorism. So don't say that. This is a really, really good amount of chocolate chips here. Anything less, I don't even say that. And so now, I tried not to overmix it. Just get it in there, just incorporate it. It'll be fine. Lumps and bumps are okay. And then I did the taste of the dough. Delicious. So good. And don't worry, only these cookies are going to my family. Nobody else is eating these. So tasting the dough, double dipping, it literally doesn't matter. We will survive. And it's important that you let your batter chill for about 30 minutes allows you to develop the sort of toffee flavor a little bit more. It'll just be a little bit more like a rich, I don't know the word, but the flavor profile of it is a little more developed, and so it's recommended that you let it sit for a little bit. A lot of people say, the longer the better, truthfully, so you can go for hours. But I was impatient, and I only did like 30 minutes. And by the way, this is why I wear an apron. I just rub my hands on myself to clean them. And now I'm twirling. Cut it out, Haley. Yeah, now I'm gonna start cleaning because I was like, girl, calm down. And it's always important for me, and I'm sure many other people, to clean as you go. And this was the point in which I realized someone left an empty box in the cabinet. Like, are you for real? So I find another box of bags to clean everything up in. I took a breath. I was like, alright, we're good. And we have so many baking items in our cabinet. Like, we probably have 2 other bags of chocolate chunks and chocolate chips, but we don't even communicate, we just bake, so it's fine that we have extra. And then, I forgot about this, the camera falls, and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Don't ever do that again. But I lay the parchment paper onto the pan, and you're gonna see me in a few moments struggle to decide whether or not I want to do 2 rows of 4, or if 3 is better. And so you use an ice cream scoop, and I won't even lie to you guys, I don't even think I waited the full 30 minutes. I was impatient. So this just goes to show that the dough can still be lovely even if you're not waiting the full amount of time, but it is recommended. And then I scoop 1 scoop of the dough onto the tray. Of course it's blocked because I just have such great camera skills that I totally saw that. And then I sort of fidget around with the cookies. Don't worry, my hands are clean. And it's only my family eating these. I feel like I have to say that 100 times. But I fidget around with them a little bit to see if I could fit all 8 onto there. But I wasn't too sure exactly how this recipe was going to spread on this size of a pan, because this is the larger pan, and my other ones are normally smaller than this. So on my smaller ones I can only do 6, but I wanted to play it safe. So as you're gonna see, I soon move them just to keep it to 6 balls of dough only. Yeah, I'm thinking about it there. I'm like, nope. Because I would rather the cookies not sort of meld into each other, just because I prefer to have the aesthetic of them being their normal round shape. And once I get those on there, I do take a couple extra chocolate chips, both the dark and semi-sweet, and I add them onto the top, just for the visual of it. Once you pull them out of the oven, they've got like those pockets of chocolate on top, and so that's really good. And then I show you them here. They go into the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and they will stay for about, for my oven, they stayed in for 12 minutes and 30 seconds. I know that's really specific, but it was a good balance between just slightly under the gold that I like and just slightly too gold. So I thought that was a good healthy balance in between the 12 and 13. And if you see my sister in the back, she brought in some of the same thing to this batch here, except it's much more reasonable to only have 6 cookies on this size of the pan, especially since it is an ice cream scoop. It's not really like a mini cookie. And then I'm doing the same thing with the chocolate chips once more. But I really liked the way that these ones spread in the oven, because I've had a lot of trial and error where I was making cookies and they literally just stayed like tall and they would not flatten. There was like one Christmas where that was all that our cookies were. Like, we had no idea what was going on, and we used the right amount of flour. I don't know what happened that year, but it was messed up. And now I am pulling out the first batch of cookies and putting in the second one. And I'm just sort of preparing as I go for the cookies and the garnishing. I use a rack just to leave the pan on for a little bit so it's off of the stove. But it's important that you know that the cookies will continue to bake if you leave them on the pan. And so it's good that you pull them out right as the edges are turning golden brown, because they will continue to bake. And if you want that sort of gooey center, that's when you can do that. And then here I am just adding on the sea salt. I feel that I'm a little bit maybe too intentional about where I place it, but if I can control the aesthetics of something, I absolutely will. And so I want to make sure that it looks like it's completely spread out. That way you're getting a little bit of sea salt in each bite. And adding the sea salt alongside the dark chocolate chips, I think, is what makes the cookie as good as it is. A lot of the time people will say that they don't like how overly sweet a chocolate chip cookie might be, and it's because they're likely using milk chocolate chips in there, and then it's just sweet dough with super sweet chocolate, and there isn't much dimension to it. And so adding the salt and the different levels of the cocoa or the cacao, however you say it, having that dark chocolate, I think makes it a lot more enjoyable. And then I slide the parchment paper off of the pan once they've had a little bit of time to cool down. They're still soft at this point, but they're, manageable. So I can touch them at this point without them breaking apart. But don't do this step too early, otherwise they will break in half. And then I just decide to move the cookies over onto these little wax parchment paper, because I reuse that first piece of parchment paper for the last set of cookies. And I believe, so there was 12 on the other 2 pans, and then I think it was 4 on the very last pan, so it made 16 cookies total with this recipe. If you make the balls of dough slightly smaller than I did, I'm sure you can get out a couple more cookies in the recipe, but I think that this is a really enjoyable size. I prefer not to have them too small, otherwise I'll definitely end up eating like 3 plus, which, enjoy your life, live it, eat the cookie, but I would rather have some self-control with all of the sweets. And then appreciate you